Joining me today, the legend of squash, Jonah Barrington, who's 1 centimetre shorter and 1 day older. Jonah, we're just going to go over the review of the PSA World Tour from the kind of beginning of the 2016-17 season, starting in August. And really, it was fireworks from the word go. With the Hong Kong Open, there was an emergence of a dominant force to be on the PSA World Tour, which in the men's was Kareem Abdul-Gawad getting to the final, losing 3-2 to Ramy Ashour. Fantastic that Ramy Ashour was able to win that first World Series after the summer break.
Yeah, terrific to see Ramy lasting the tournament and playing a match like that. But obviously, that was the first real sign that we had that Gawad was on the move. He didn't win that, but it triggered off some extraordinary performances later on.
Well, he hit the rankings in August. He was at number 8 in the world, and Kareem Abdul-Gawad then moved on into taking the Al-Aram title, obviously the World Championships in Cairo, which was unbelievable, and then backing up for the Qatar Classic, and now hitting a number 2 in the world ranking. Now, he's on the scene. He's a massive. He's the man to watch at the moment. Mohammed El-Shorbagy, who has dominated the first part of 2016 and has been in the world number 1 position for over 2 years now. What do you think he kind of needs to do to respond? Because for the first time outside of the kind of golden era, he's now got an adversary that's beaten him twice on the hop.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't use the word dominated in that first period of the year. What I think happened was actually quite deceptive. Because the main rivals, Greg and Nick Matthew particularly, were unable to sustain their challenges. And if you look back, Shorbagy was in trouble in matches when those players weren't actually able to fulfill it. So that in itself showed that maybe Shorbagy wasn't as dominant as you would have expected him to be. And psychologically, it was a very difficult phase, not only for Nick and Greg, because coming back from injury again and again, which they've done, is unbelievably difficult when you're older. But for Shorbagy, understanding really what was taking place, there hadn't been a challenge from behind that would have geared him. He felt probably that he could outlast Greg and Nick at that stage, and also because they were so vulnerable in matches at that time. So to my mind, his level was not being sustained, and even though he was winning, I think the real test came during the autumn, Joey, when there was the emergence of Gawad, but also Ali Farag was now playing exceptionally well, and you could see that players were making progress in a way that they hadn't in that previous 12 and 18 months. Their time was coming, and the hunger and motivation was coming through. And also, Nick and Greg materialized again, sustaining themselves, coming back again, playing at an extraordinarily high level still. So it was a deceptive year. Mohammed retained the number 1 ranking, but not, to my mind, in the way that he had done in the previous year.
Sure, and you know, you talked about these the younger players coming through, and the fitness levels of the golden era players. Ramy Ashour, there were murmurings that there was going to be a great rivalry between himself and Mohammed El-Shorbagy, but unfortunately for Ramy Ashour, he's just battling continually against his body. With these players of the golden era, the likes of Nick Matthew and Gaultier and even James Willstrop, we know Ramy Ashour can, if he's fit, can win a tournament. He showed that in Hong Kong. But do you think they can still, those guys can still win major titles, even world championships on the PSA World Tour?
Well, Ramy's always capable of winning a championship, providing, and it's always with the proviso. With Nick, it's not to such an extent, but it's becoming more difficult for the body to back up. And Greg's been showing difficulties also in that area, Joey, in this last phase. I mean, they are playing at world-class level, but it's playing through a tournament, getting caught in a couple of tougher matches than would ordinarily have happened, because Greg beat more people 3-0 than anybody probably since Chris Dittmar, and that goes back 100 years.
Yeah, it's a long time ago, late 80s.
And I mean, you always talk about the French general, and the French general is a master squash player. He's one of the great all-time squash players, and he's dominated so many matches from the first point and controlled everything that's gone on, and that is not happening in the same way, possibly because his standard is slowly ebbing. It's very slow, but it may well be ebbing, and also because of the progress of other players and feeling that they now have a chance to do something.
We've talked about the challenge from the players of the golden era, the older players on the PSA World Tour. The newer players, Kareem Abdul-Gawad's made his mark. He's hit the scene. What other players do you think coming through from kind of the top 20 can actually start to upset the apple cart and take some major titles in the second part of the 2017 season?
Well, the first one I would choose, and it's fairly obvious, is Ali Farag, because I think he's an exceptional player. I think he has an exceptional mind. He's an exceptional athlete. He reminds me with his movement of Jansher Khan to some extent. He's so economical, and he showed last year that he was raising his level to a contending situation. I expect him to go further this year. I would think also that Dasuki, he's not stalled, but he has not progressed in the way that I thought he would in this last period. Now I'm expecting more maturity. I'm expecting a greater level of confidence in what's happening, and of course behind it all a greater hunger. They've all seen what Gawad has done, so those two I feel will be very significant, and I think that Paul Cole will also make progress again. It's going to be fascinating as he's come into the top 20. Again, eyes will be on him to see what happens. I expect him to have some losses that maybe other people wouldn't see were going to happen, but at the same time I'm expecting him to pick off some unusual names.
And the road to Dubai, it's with these World Series events on the PSA World Tour, the major events on the PSA World Tour, the standings at this moment in time, January 2017, are all over the place. Gregory Gaultier, who is the defending champion of the World Series finals, doesn't even feature in the top 8. Mathieu Castagnet, Rodriguez, and even Mossad right outside the fold there. We've seen a big drop-off as well of Rodriguez and Omar Mossad, who were at the height of the game, 4 and 5 in the world, the beginning of 2016. Mossad's now just inside top 10, dropping from career high world number 3, and also Rodriguez is now 14 in the world. What would you attribute those kind of quite significant drops in quite a short period of time? Why would you see that at the very highest level?
Well, Rodriguez obviously plays.
We all have a bit of fun with that name.
Yeah. Well, I nearly called him Rodrigo, who had a marvelous violin concerto, but that's something else. But this is Rodriguez. I think the injury syndrome, Joey. I think that was the problem. He was playing when he wasn't fully fit. He was trying to continue because it's remorseless, you know that. And I think that providing he has a healthy body on him and he doesn't run into further problems, because his game is unbelievably physical, and it may well be that he has to play a bit more practically, and some would say a bit more intelligently, so that he doesn't use his body in the way that he has in the past. And with Omar Mossad, I think also he had a bit of a problem early in the autumn season, and he's a big chap, so mobility is unbelievably important for all players at that level, Joey. And he wasn't moving in the way that he would have wanted, and then of course confidence falls away, so your game falls not apart, but it becomes more difficult to play the way that causes problems for his opponents. Arriving later at the ball, all those kind of things were happening, and everything depends, as before with Rodriguez, it depends on how fit Omar is at the beginning of this next period, because he and Rodriguez are very, very good players. You don't become a bad player overnight. You can have a bad spell, but both of them have exceptional qualities, and I would hope that they will respond again.
Well, we've got 4 World Series events to go in the race to Dubai, Jonah. I mean, it's wide open in the top 8. Gregory Gaultier's defending champion of the World Series finals isn't even there. He's 30 points away. And what a reward for the players. I mean, deservedly so. It's a huge amount of prize money and a fantastic finale at the end of a quite brutal season to be going to Dubai and playing there for no pressure in terms of points, but plenty of prize money.
Yeah, I think the half phase in the season was as tough as it has been. A lot of players had to continue with, and we've talked about it, injuries. We didn't mention Matthew Castanet, who is a fine player, and I hope that he's going to be in the mix in this period. Greg Gaultier, I am convinced will have a very good tournament at some stage, which will pull him into that. But it's going to be a very hungry period again. I mean, these guys are battering each other. You know, it's all very well to talk about background training after the World Tour finals. It's all very well, but there need to be recovery periods, and I would expect some pretty memorable matches kicking off in New York, Joey.
And then a prediction, Jonah. Who do you think will be? who do you think will be the main guys to qualify for Dubai?
Well, you were going to ask me who I thought would win it, and you were going to ask me if Gawad, what I felt about that, and I was going to say to you, he's probably at this stage the favourite.
You're reading my mind again.
Yeah, he's probably the favourite, but I think that there's a sort of openness about it that is very encouraging and stimulating, and I am not going to pick anybody. And stuff you.
So on to the women, the 2016-2017 season starting with the Hong Kong Open. It was a very dramatic start, really, with Narong Gohar, who had a very solid 2016 beginning. Yeah. After the summer break came through, and she actually beat Amanda Sobey in a surprise final, really. And I mean, that's the first World Series event for Gohar, who's actually still a junior at the time.
Yeah, but they're not juniors when they reach that stage, Joey. They're already very experienced. She's now got a lot of background, and she's playing at the highest level. She's proved that. All that's going to happen, I would expect, is for her to kick on. She has a mega game of pressure deep, terrific retrieving ability, and she's only going to get better and better, and I am expecting that already in New York.
Well, the second World Series event for the ladies was the US Open, which again threw in an amazing array of semi-finals, quarter-final matches, and then the final, the winner was Camille Serme, winning her second World Series event after the British Open. I mean, she proves, Jonah, that she can win at the very highest level, so she's also a major danger.
Well, that was a brilliant tournament for the ladies, and Camille is progressing. I was very impressed with the way she's developed a short game and her skills on a short game. She seemed to have much more control over her temperament. Not that I'm critical, but again, at that level, the maturity has to be there, and she's maturing all the time in that regard and becoming a better player, which is great for the sport.
And the lady that's kind of been going underneath the radar, as you would say, in the non-World Series events, but still major events, is Raneem Al-Walili. She won the Alaram in the Pyramids, which was a fantastic final with Shabini, and then she won against Gohar, a younger compatriot, in the Wadi Degla, which was the last kind of major women's event of the year. So El Walili has been a world number one. She's got titles under her belt, and I think she's looking quite hungry again for the second part of the season.
Well, she had a sustained period where she was the main rival with Nicole, and her game obviously was a huge contrast with Nicole, always fascinating to watch. But she is unbelievably skillful, and it's such a pleasure to see that kind of game working in the way that it has during that last phase of the year. So she should come into this year with confidence.
Yeah, and then you can never write out Laura Mazzaro. She's the defending champion of the World Series finals. I mean, she's been, you know, at the very top end. She's won British Opens. She's been a world champion, a world number one. And to me, like the elder English players in the men, she's still very, very hungry, and she still has an amazing attention to detail. And she hasn't won a World Series event yet in the 2016-2017 season.
Yeah.
They've got 3 more to go. She's still got a very good chance of taking another title or a couple.
Yeah, it's exactly the same, really, paralleled with the men. Laura's just a fantastic example to the men and women of what can be done with steady development, hard work over a sustained period of time, meticulous preparation, playing at the highest level still, and obviously would be considered one of the main contenders for titles during this year.
And then Nicole David, who's achieved everything in the game. She's dominated, 8-time world champion, world number one for so many months. And she's slipped down to number 7 in the world, Jonah. She's 33 years of age. She's still very mobile on the court. But the factor, I think, for me was the changing of the tin from the traditional 19-inch to 17-inch to be equal with the men. And why do you think that she has slipped down? Is it because the level has gone up with these Egyptian players, or is it because of the slight lack of adaptation possibly to the lower tin?
Well, the young Egyptian players have come up with lower tin, but also, more importantly, they've come up, as in Egypt, all the young players tend to attack the front of the court. So you've got Shabini, and you've not so much Gohar, but Shabini and others who play the front of the court exceptionally well. And I think that when Nicole was in her prime phase, which was very remarkable, such a great player, I don't think that she came under assault in that area in quite the same way. And her ability, which she has sustained to play the end games without making any errors at all. Again and again I watched her play. When it got to 7-all, 8-all, the one player who would not make an unforced mistake was Nicole. But she's under far more pressure now from more players, and of course when somebody psychologically loses that advantage of being unbeaten for such a sustained period, then everybody gets up and has a go. But she's still in very, very good form, and I would expect her to make a mark still.
So going on to the world number one, Nour El Shabini, she has been actually, although she hasn't won a major event in the 2016-2017 season, she has been very, very consistent. I mean, she only just lost out to Camille Serme in a very nerve-wracking battle in the US Open, and also in Al Aram to El Walili. I mean, it's always kind of 5 games whether she wins or she loses. So, I mean, she's got to be gunning, Jonah, for these last 3 World Series events, particularly on the women's tour and the road to Dubai.
Yeah, I think she's played really well during the period you've talked about. She's just been ousted. It's been very marginal. The other players have raised their level, gone after her. She's the one to beat, Joey. I think she's handled the pressure really well. I would expect her form to be maintained and progressed, but of course she's being targeted. And the gap has been closing with Nouran, particularly in this last 4 or 5 months. The gap has closed, but I think Shabini she's a wonderful player. Again, very creative, and I would expect great things from her in 2017.
Okay, and then you've got Alison Walters, very experienced at kind of number 8 in the world. What players for you outside of that kind of core 7-8 and the women's who do you think might start to kind of break into that top area, break those players there from outside? Who would you, what names would you be looking at?
Well, Alison especially has done marvellously well, because she's also had to battle injuries, and she's come back, and she's got a formidable mind on her, and she has a great ranking. So again, providing she's healthy, her form should continue through into this year. But it's very difficult for these young players to bridge the gap, because again, you are talking about bridging a gap between the players who are at world-class level and then the younger players. Out of England, we've got Sarah Jane Perry, who had a very good year, really. Emily Whitlock, who has come through in this last phase, and I must mention Tesney Evans from Wales, who's reached the top 20. So I wouldn't call most of those players, not those individuals, I wouldn't call most of the other players contending at this stage. What I'm hoping is that over this next year, a lot of younger girls start to step up, realise what needs to be done. Take the example of Nicole, over years and years and years of continual work. Laura Mazzaro, same principles. Understand, and then put it into practice themselves.
Well, they have got to break that top 7 or 8 to get into the World Series finals in Dubai. It's going to be very, very tough with all the names we've said. We've also Noor El Taib, that's been inside top 5 in the world. She's come back from injury. She's also a danger, another Egyptian lady, so many of them. But the names you mentioned there, I mean, we'd certainly be watching out for them on the PSA World Tour. And just going over the review of the men's, Jonah, and the women's, it's been actually a pleasure working with you and hearing your thoughts. I don't know if you reciprocate that at all.
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? At times for me to believe what you're saying and also to reciprocate.
Well, I bet you can thank me if you want, but...
I will probably come up with something in time, Joey.
Okay, well, we'll wait, and the viewers can wait for that as well, because hopefully it will come through. But it's been a pleasure to hear from Jonah Barrington, and we'll be back for more reviews on the men's and women's PSA World Tour. Join us again.